When I first became a stepmom, I knew the journey wasn't going to be simple. Marriage is one thing, but building a connection with a child who has already lived through his parents' separation is something else entirely. I married Daniel 2 years ago, and with that marriage came his 11-year-old son, Jacob. From the very first day I could sense the wall Jacob had built around himself. He was polite enough, sometimes even sweet, but always distant, as though he was testing how long I would stay before I gave up on him. I remember the first dinner we had together as a family. Daniel and I were sitting at the table laughing about something silly, and Jacob sat there quietly moving his food around his plate. He wasn't rude, he just seemed lost in thought, and whenever I tried to engage him he would answer with short words and glance away. It was in those moments I realized that love in blended families doesn't bloom instantly. It's not like in the movies where the new stepmom swoops in and instantly becomes a best friend. Real life is slower, more complicated, and sometimes even painful. But I promised myself I wouldn't force anything. I would show up consistently and let him see that I wasn't going anywhere. I knew trust takes time, and I was ready to wait as long as it took. One evening, months into our new life together, something happened that changed everything. It was a quiet Tuesday night, the kind of night where the house felt almost too still. Daniel was running late from work and I was upstairs putting away laundry. As I passed Jacob's room, I noticed his door wasn't fully closed. A small strip of light spilled into the hallway, and I could hear the faint scratching of a pencil, followed by the sharp sound of erasing over and over. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to respect his space, he guarded it fiercely, but something in the sound of that eraser told me he wasn't just doing homework. There was frustration, maybe even sadness in every movement. So I knocked gently on the doorframe. "Hey Jacob," I said softly. "You doing okay in there?" There was a pause and then a muttered, "I'm fine." I pushed the door open just a little and peeked in. He was sitting at his desk, shoulders slumped, eyes glassy with tears he was clearly trying to hold back. His notebook was a mess of scribbles and eraser marks, as if he had written and rewritten the same thing a dozen times. My heart tightened. This wasn't the face of a boy who was just struggling with math problems. I stepped inside slowly, careful not to make him feel cornered. "You don't look fine," I said gently. "Want to talk about it?" He shook his head, clutching the notebook to his chest as if it held some kind of secret. For a moment I thought he might shut me out completely the way he usually did. But then, maybe because he was too tired to resist, he slid the notebook across the desk toward me. When I opened it, my chest ached. It wasn't math or science at all. It was an essay assignment. The page was filled with crossed-out sentences. I could make out bits and pieces of what he had written. "My mom and dad are divorced," scratched out harshly. "Sometimes I don't know where I belong," erased so hard the paper had nearly torn. My throat tightened as I read. This wasn't about schoolwork. This was about his heart. I glanced up at him. "Jacob," I said softly, "is this for your English class?" He nodded, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. "We're supposed to write about our family," he whispered. "But I don't know what to say. Everyone else has normal families. They get to write about their mom and dad and how happy they are. And me," his voice cracked. "I don't even know what my family is anymore." Those words pierced me. I wanted so badly to gather him into a hug, but I knew I had to tread carefully. Jacob wasn't the type to respond well to sudden affection. He needed to feel safe first. So instead I sat down on the edge of his bed, giving him space but also making sure he knew I wasn't leaving. "You know," I began slowly, "families come in all shapes and sizes. Some kids live with grandparents, some with just their mom, some with just their dad. And some have step-parents like me." He glanced at me, uncertainty in his eyes. "But you're not my real mom." The words stung, but I didn't let it show. He wasn't trying to hurt me, he was just telling his truth. I nodded. "You're right," I said. "I didn't give birth to you. But I do care about you like you're mine. That's real. And if you want to, you can write about all the people who make your life stronger, even if it doesn't look like anyone else's." For a long moment he just looked at me. I could almost see the gears turning in his mind, as though he was testing the weight of my words. Then slowly he picked up his pencil again. This time he didn't erase. His hand moved steadily across the paper, line after line. I sat quietly, not wanting to break the fragile moment. Later that week he came to me with the essay in hand. His cheeks were pink with embarrassment as he handed it over. I wanted you to read it." I unfolded the paper and started to read. His words were simple, a little clumsy, but they carried more weight than anything I'd read in a long time. He wrote about his dad, about his mom, and then about me. At the end, in his uneven handwriting, were the words that made my eyes fill with tears. My family is different, but it's mine. I have a mom, a dad, and a stepmom who helps me when I feel lost. And that's enough for me. I couldn't hold back anymore. I pulled him into a hug, and to my surprise, this time he didn't resist. He leaned into me just for a moment, but it was enough. Enough to tell me that the wall he'd built around himself was starting to crack. That night, when Daniel came home, I told him what had happened. He listened quietly, his eyes glistening with pride and relief. He pulled me close and whispered, "Thank you for loving him the way you do." But the truth is, that moment wasn't about me being a hero or saving the day. It was about showing up. It was about listening when it would have been easier to walk past that half-open door. Parenting, whether biological or step, isn't about having all the answers. It's about being present even in the messy moments, even when you feel unsure. In the months that followed, Jacob began to open up more. He still had hard days, still struggled with questions of belonging, but there was a shift. He started sitting with me in the living room while I read. He began asking for help with homework, not just from his dad, but from me too. And every once in a while, he'd surprise me with a smile or a small joke that made me laugh. The journey is still ongoing. Some days are easier than others. But that night, when I walked in on my stepson struggling, I realized something I will carry with me forever. The hardest struggles are often the ones that bring us closer. And love, real love, doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it's quiet, like the sound of a pencil moving across paper, carving out a story of a family that's imperfect, but whole in its own way. Please like and subscribe my channel for more romantic videos.